Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Paranormal Misfit Podcast. I am your host, Chrissy, and I'm here to talk about all things horror, macabre, paranormal, cryptids, and everything in between. So cozy up in your favorite spot with a hauntingly delicious drink and listen along. So, last week's episode dealt with me sharing the history and some conspiracy theories revolving around the Lost Colony of Roanoke. And during that, I had made mention about American Horror Story Roanoke, which I believe is the sixth, seventh season. Kind of hard to say. But yeah. So anyway, so I was like, hey, since I've already started on it, let's just go ahead and keep going. So with Roanoke, yes, the sixth season. So this one is titled Roanoke, and it follows the supernatural experiences around a haunted house and its surrounding in North Carolina. The first half of the season is presented as a paranormal documentary entitled My Roanoke Nightmare, which reenacts the experiences of a married couple who lived in a fucking gorgeous house, even though it was run down. And then the second half is presented as a found footage. Not really you know what, to be honest, it's not really found footage to me. It's more so reality TV. And it depicts the doomed production of the documentary sequel. It's not really a documentary sequel, though. It's like real world. Real world, road rules kind of thing. So anyways, in this season, you get Kathy Bates, Sarah Paulson, Cuba Gooding Jr., Lily Rabb, Andre Holland, Dennis O'Hare, Wes Bentley, Evan Peters, Cheyenne Jackson, and Angela Bassett. Fucking queen. So, how it starts out is it originally starts out as the My Roanoke Nightmare. And you have Shelby and Matt Miller, who present as a married couple and later find out that they are divorced or on the verge of separation. I don't really remember. Being interviewed for a documentary called My Roanoke Nightmare. Through a combination of dramatic reenactments and testimonials, the couple revealed they fled to North Carolina from Los Angeles after an assault as part of a gang initiation that caused Shelby to miscarry their baby. While in North Carolina, though, the couple find an abandoned colonial farmhouse that they purchase as an attempt to start over again. I mean, $40,000. It's 2 stories, tons of fucking rooms, like everything's original practically, and also has a cellar, lots of land, middle of nowhere. Well, anyways, so you find out that Matt is a traveling salesman and Shelby, I believe, at one point was a yoga instructor. So they purchased the house as an attempt to start over again. $40,000 apparently depleted their savings. I'm not saying that that's not a thing. But in that time period, 2016, I mean, Ray and I just tried to buy a house just a few months ago, and it was $240,000. We could not get nearly as much, but that's beside the point. Anyways, after moving into the house, strange and violent events began to unfold that threatened the couple. So every time Matt leaves, so the first occurrence happens, and I believe Matt's still home, and it's like stuff's being thrown. It's got this huge fog, and things are being thrown at them or whatever. Next is, which they thought were like the hillbilly neighbors. I don't know. That's what they called them. Who were also trying to buy the house, so they figured they were trying to be, like scared out because one, you're in the South, you're a biracial couple, and you just beat out a bunch of fucking rednecks. Maybe not. So then Shelby is at the house twice by herself. The first time while she's by herself, she encounters what seems like what should be seen as a hailstorm is actually a hail of teeth. And when she calls Matt and he comes back from, like his trip into town, which is like a few towns over apparently to get to any decent grocery store or whatever he was doing, She goes outside to go show him the teeth, and they're all gone. Next, she is staying overnight by herself, and she goes outside to go in the hot tub and is pulled or pushed under the water of the hot tub by an unseen force. And then the cops get called, and Matt comes back, and it's not very welcoming by the sheriff, I would say. So anyway, so to help this kind of stuff, right? Matt, when he leaves on another business trip, asks for his ex-cop sister Leo to stay, or not Lee, Lee to stay, which is reenacted during the reenactment, is reenacted by fucking Angela Bassett, fucking goddess. Anyways, to stay and guard Shelby. Lee and Shelby don't get along, which puts them in jeopardy as the house is invaded by a group of people wielding knives and torches. The mob leaves creepy totems and a video of a man encountering a creature who has the head of a pig and the body of a man. Matt wants to stay in the house rather than flee, obviously, because they've depleted their whole savings, and where are they going to go? And in a, I won't say a fit of rage, more of angst, Shelby escapes in Matt's car, and she thought that she hit a woman in the road, and this woman kind of looks like Kathy Bates, and Shelby, tries to go and find her and follow her, and she ends up witnessing a ritualistic murder in the woods. So you move on. The way they do it is they do it through chapters. So chapter 2, Shelby assumes that the ritual that she witnessed was staged. She and Matt resolve to stay in the house. After discovering a burning totem in the woods near the house, Matt and Shelby finally secure the help of local police. Unnerving and mysterious events continue to affect the house residents, including Matt, Lee, and her daughter Flora. And Lee is in a very nasty divorce with her ex-husband, and has kind of, at one point during the season, hijacked Flora. And there's a whole thing on that, so we'll get to that. Okay, so Shelby and Matt discover a storm cellar under the backyard. They view a recording created by a man in the first video. He was a previous resident who came to the house to research it. He details the house's previous use as a nursing home where two sisters committed multiple murders. Shelby and Matt realize that they are trapped because all of their money is tied up in the house and they have no way out. Meanwhile, Lee violates her custody agreement with her ex-husband and brings Flora to the house in an attempt to spend time with her. Flora encounters an entity named Priscilla who tells her that everyone in the house will be murdered. Flora disappears, and the adults find her hoodie atop of a massive pine tree. While searching for Flora, Lee's ex-husband is found dead. Shelby suspects that Lee and the security cameras show that she followed him out of the house during the night. Meanwhile, the Hillbilly family vanishes, leaving behind two of their feral sons. When I mean feral, I mean feral. Cricket, who is played by the deceased Leslie Jones, rest in peace, that man was fucking amazing, claims to be able to locate Flora, and Lee pays him $25,000. In the documentary interview, Lee reluctantly discusses the disappearance of her first daughter many years ago. Cricket reveals that Priscilla is a dead 16th century child, and the area is haunted by spirits led by the butcher, formerly Thomasine White, the first lady of Roanoke Colony, which is funny because whenever you go to research the actual history of Roanoke Colony, White was never said to have brought his wife along. He could have, because there is no really good records of Roanoke County or Roanoke Colony. But, he brought his pregnant daughter. Why wouldn't he bring his wife? So colonists rebelled against Thomasine in her husband's absence and left her for dead. In desperation, she gave her soul to a mysterious woman and violently retook the colony, forcing them to relocate, and is what now Shelby and Matt's property. Matt disappears during a confrontation with the spirits, and Shelby finds him doing it with the same mysterious woman. Matt does not recall these events. As they argue, police arrive to arrest Lee, tipped off by Shelby. Moving to chapter 4. Following Matt's affair with the mysterious woman, Shelby thinks that Matt and Lee are conspiring against her. Later that night, Shelby is attacked by the Piggy Man and saved by Dr. Cunningham. Dr. Cunningham reveals the history of the paranormal activity of the house to the Millers. He reveals that Thomasine is responsible for the disappearances in the house, and all of them occur on the same 6-day lunar cycle in October. Dr. Cunningham leads the Millers to Flora, but is killed by Thomasine's men. As the Millers rush home, they encounter Cricket. Cricket heads back into the woods and comes face to face with the mysterious woman, who reveals to be the true leader of Roanoke County. She shows Cricket what happened to the Lost Colony of Roanoke. Through his experience with the mysterious woman, Matt learns some of her backstory. Before Matt can finish learning her backstory, he's interrupted by Shelby's screams. Thomasine's mob surrounds the house with Flora in their possession, but Priscilla helps to free her. All of the Millers flee into the house, and Shelby and Matt witness the mob dismembering poor Cricket. So Doris Keynes Goodwin reveals the backstory of one of the owners of Roanoke, which is Edward Philip Mott, and his subsequent ownership of the property. Mott used the property as a storage house for his art collection, he was a covert homosexual with affairs with one of his slaves. During the blood moon, he was sacrificed by Thomasine and her men. In present, Thomasine's mob surrounds the house, ready to kill the Millers. The mob attacks the house, and just when all seems lost, Edward arrives and leads the Millers to safety. However, he abandons the Millers out in the wood, leading them to being kidnapped by the Polk family. Meanwhile, Lee is released from police custody due to the lack of evidence. The Millers attempt to escape, which leads to Mama Polk breaking Shelby's leg. The Polks return the Millers to the Thomasine as revenge for the loss of their 2 children. Just as Thomasine is about to sacrifice the Miller family, Ambrose stops her from completing the ritual and pushes her into the fire of penance for the colony's sins. Edward then reappears and unties Matt and Shelby. Then Lee arrives back at the house, flees the property in her car. Afterwards, the Millers decide to head back to Los Angeles for a normal life. Okay. So like the first half of American Horror Story was great because I really do like that kind of stuff, right? Like the paranormal, reenactments, learning that kind of stuff. Hearing histories, you're kind of thinking like My House is Haunted, or what was that one on Netflix? Haunted? I don't remember. But stuff like that, stuff with reenactments, all makes sense. You're sharing your terror, you're sharing your ghost story, you're sharing whatever, right? What fucks this up, and it fucks it up, is the second half of this season. Because sure, they could have gone down the route of, they call it a documentary. It's not a documentary. What they did is they forced the reenactors and the people who actually lived through it into the house together. And to me, that's more of like some fucked up version of Real World or Road Rules. If you're a millennial, you know. So yeah, I feel like that's what messes it up. And it's not only that messes us up, but it's also the tropes of the different horror themes that also kind of messes it up for me as well. So like I said, they do a reenactment, and you got like the nerve center or the production watching from like, I don't know, less than a quarter of a mile away from the house. They're in like their own little place. And Matt and Shelby, the original Matt and Shelby. Is it she's trying to rekindle, or is he trying to rekindle? One of them is trying to rekindle like their relationship back, which then goes to tell you that they have actually physically separated. And the original Lee comes back to the house. And yeah, so like a lot of stuff happens. You find out that through this, they didn't, you know, My Roanoke Nightmare is a massive success, and spurred by the success, the network executive and producer pitches a new idea for a follow-up series entitled Return to Roanoke 3 Days in Hell, in which the reenactors and their real-world counterparts are brought back together in the Roanoke house for 3 days during the blood moon. Because when they mentioned the days, especially the doctor, when he's explaining it to the couple that this was happening to, there's a very particular time this happens. So anyways, Sydney is the producer, executive and producer, reveals that his motive for producing the follow-up was to expose Lee for the murder of Mason, which is her ex-husband. The real Shelby Miller is reluctant to participate in the new series, but is convinced to do it by a chance to reconnect with her estranged husband. As I said, they have split up. As part of the new series, the lives of the reenactors who portrayed these events are explored. So, like, literally real world road rules kind of shit. As the crew preps the house for filming, strange events begin to unfold. As the series commences, the reenactors then begin to get a taste of the true horrors within the house. It is revealed through the series that all but one of the participants died in the house and that the series will never be made to air. The first victim was Rory, who was the reenactor of Edward Philip Mott, who the 2 nurses murder. Okay, so following Rory's murder, Agnes, who is portrayed by Kathy Bates, is consumed by her role as Thomasine. She murders Sydney and his entire production team. Meanwhile, tensions in the house continue to rise as Matt, Shelby, and Dominic continue to argue about Shelby's infidelity, and Lee and Monette go back and forth about her alcoholism. So fighting is interrupted when Agnes appears and attacks Shelby, forcing Lee, Audrey, and Monette to go into the woods to find help. On the way to find help, Audrey and Monette begin to encounter various supernatural occurrences that frighten them. Eventually, the three women are kidnapped by the Polk family and are taken back to their farm, where they proceed to cut strips of Lee's leg off and feed it to Audrey and Monet. Meanwhile, inside the house, Dominic and Shelby come across Matt having, once again, relations with the, we'll call her a goddess. A deity? Let's call her a deity. Matt admits he came back to the house for her, causing Shelby to bludgeon him to death in a violent rage. Now, mind you, while all of this is happening, the production crew has, in fact, set the cameras up everywhere in the house. So I'm pretty sure there's not a single area of that house that does not have a camera. So anyways, Agnes lights a fire outside the house, demanding satisfaction from the occupants of it. Just then, the real Thomasine and her mob surrounds Agnes, and Thomasine kills Agnes by thrusting her cleaver into her face. Oh, Kathy Bates kills Kathy Bates, just FYI. So the story behind it all, right, is that when Thomasine was at her lowest during the Roanoke colony. So obviously the Roanoke colony wants, what is his name? I gotta go back to my notes. When John White left the colony to go back to get supplies, because literally all they were eating was corn, terrible relations with the Native Americans around them because they fucking fucked up and bit the hand that helped feed them. They could have learned more. This is what you get. So Thomasine is seen, first she's kind of ruling very justly, right? And her son, whatever. So anyway, so they're starting to get mad at her, right? Because nothing's being produced, nothing is happening, all of this stuff. And they put her in, God, I feel like it was like a medieval torture device almost. It was like kind of something from Saw. It was a cage that goes over her head. And they leave her out to die in the woods during winter when none of them want to die, but they do it to her. And in the process of it all, she runs into Lady Gaga's character, who, I don't know, I guess is like a deity. And I won't call her a dark deity. I won't call her like you don't know. She's like an old, like almost an old god, because when she's telling her story to, I believe it's Matt, you find out that she's kind of a stowaway, and with being the stowaway, God, early on, like she starts to take vengeance, and it's kind of hard. It really is hard to explain. But anyway, so she is who saves Thomasine, and with that gives her an unnatural power, right? And she looks earthly. Let's just put it that way. We're just going to call it earthly, as in like she came from the earth. So anyway, so Thomasine exacts her revenge. And in doing that, I want to say it almost looked like a Thanksgiving feast where they're all sitting out and they're all about to enjoy their food together. And I'm pretty sure, if anything, she poisoned the fuck out of all of them. And with that, she basically becomes the new governor. Will we call her a governor? Whatever. So then she leads by fear. Instead of leading by love, she begins to lead by fear. But before she led by justice, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, right? That's not what I wanted. Okay, sorry guys. So yeah, this is the entity that Matt keeps running into and kind of like keeps continuously hooking up with by whatever fucking means. I don't know. So after Agnes, who is the reenactor of Thomasine, is murdered, Dominic and Shelby begin planning to escape the house. They decide to flee out the secret passage, but are foiled by the ghosts of the Chen family who are attacking them. So when the doctor is going through the different ghosts, right, behind the different deaths that happen in the house, they all happen at the same time. They're all happening to the same, not to the same people. You know, every person isn't as terrible as the last. So when Edward Mott, Philip Moth, takes over the house, you know, he's more into the plantation time period. But his happens because things start happening. He's thinking like, you know, we're going to call them servants. I don't want to use the other word, are destroying his art, and come to find out they're not. It's actually Thomasine's people and herself. When you then move on to the Chen family was this sweet little family. I don't remember if they're Vietnamese, Chinese. They're an Asian family. The sweet little Asian family moves in. It's during about like the 60s time period. And they're murdered by all the ghosts. And then you have the two sisters who are nurses. Well, these bitches are absolutely fucking insane because they kill. They how do I say this? They pose as a nursing home, promising to take care of their elderly. And families willingly bring their elderly there. And they just angels of death. And we won't call them angels of death, we'll call them devils of death, because what they did to most of these fucking people was absolutely disgusting. And in the process of doing it all, by the time the blood moon hits for their time period, they get fucking murdered. Good on them. Karma's a bitch. So anyways, this forces the pair. So after the couple are trying to escape the house and the 10 family is attacking them, this forces the pair to flee upstairs and lock themselves in a bathroom, but are attacked by the piggy man. And then Thomas Sane's mob is, coming up. Once they're safely inside, Shelby slits her throat out of guilt for murdering Matt. Meanwhile, the three women continue to be tortured by the Polk family, with Lee losing most of her flesh, Audrey having one of her teeth ripped out. Eventually, the women manage to escape, killing 2 Polks in the process. However, only Audrey and Lee make it back to the house, as the 2 remaining Polks are hunting down Monet. Back at the house, 2 women come across Matt's body. Then the 2 find Shelby's body, and then Dominic in the bathroom. The 2 blame Dominic for the death of Matt and Shelby, forcing him out into the hall where the piggy man murders him next. The next morning, Dylan arrives at the house, to the 2 women's surprise. So the other thing about Matt and Shelby is I'm pretty sure at one point Shelby is hooking up with Dominic, which then, I guess kind of like an eye for an eye if you're thinking about it, because she assumes that, Matt's cheating on her with whoever it was, which is Lady Gaga's character, which can you really? I don't know. We're not going to go down that path. Both are doing an eye for each other, basically, right? So anyways, so then you have 3 fanatics of the My Roanoke nightmare. My dog is having a fit outside. So they head into the woods to search for the house. They stop to take pictures of a tree where Flora's jacket was found, but are interrupted by a bloody woman who begs for help. The 3 chase after the woman, only to come across her dead body in an overturned car. When the 3 report it to the police tell them they found no body and that they need to stop making things up. Meanwhile, Audrey, Lee, and Dylan return to the Polk compound to discover Lee's taped confession and Monet, as well as to escape. The lot murders Dylan, and the 3 women succeed in escaping the incoming mob, but are separated in the woods. Sorry, not the mood, the woods. 3 bloggers return to the woods to uncover the night to expose the truth, only to be murdered by Lee, who is then possessed by Lady Gaga's character, Thomas Sane, and her mob. Lee also murders Monet and attempts to murder Audrey. The next morning, the police arrive to find carnage. Having survived her wounds, Audrey grabs an officer's gun and shoots Lee in vengeance and is gunned down by the police. So, when we go back to it, Lee goes on 3 different series. Following Lee's murders, 3 different series, Cracked, Lena Winters Special. Now, Lena Winters, if you guys were if you watched the early episodes of American Horror Story, Season 2 has Alana Winters. She was originally the one who went in undercover at the asylum and, obviously almost got killed by the serial killer who posed as a doctor and then ends up with their own TV special. So anyways, so they're all doing the whole thing of what could have driven her to kill. On Crack, Lee's trial and subsequent acquittals for her murders are covered. Lana Winters Special. Fame reporter Lana Winters interviews Lee about her daughter's disappearance, believing that Lee retook her. The interview is interrupted by the lot of Polk, who threaten violence against Lee until he is shot. So on Spirit Chasers, a group of paranormal investigators, including Ashley Gilbert, who is Cricket's reenactor, trespass into the Roanoke house during the blood moon to capture the spirits on film. They're interrupted by Lee, who busts in looking for Flora. The ghost murders all of the Spirit Chasers crew and Ashley. Lee is able to reunite with Flora, and following the emotional reunion, Lee decides to sacrifice herself so she can protect Priscilla and give Flora a chance at life. Flora leaves the house and watches her mother walk off into the woods with Priscilla. From a hilltop, Thomas Sane watches over her mob as they begin to surround the house again. So here's the issue. Once they got to the second part, it went all over the fucking place. And while I know it's a thing, and I'm not whatever. The main thing that pissed me off is we're in the backwoods and you guys continuously use in horror the thing of inbreds, deliverance, hills have eyes. What's that other one? Wrong turn. We're all, I don't know. It's a trope that's been done and done and done and done. And I'm over it because it's not, I don't know. I don't know. It just irritates me to my core, right? Because that's not the only thing that's there. Like, we could have taken this. You're talking about North Carolina, and you're talking about, like, the woods, which the woods that could be part of, the Appalachians and stuff. You could have used cryptids. You could have used true supernatural. You could have used the different Native American lore and just their stuff. But instead, they continuously go with the stupid inbred shit. And it pisses me off to no extent. I don't know why. So yeah, what's funny is that in June of 2021, Sarah Paulson actually shares a little tidbit on a podcast called Awards Chatter from The Hollywood Reporter. And during the interview, she expressed having regret filming this season, stating that I just didn't care about the season at all. I know people will get mad at me for saying it, but to me, this was post having played Marcia. And it was what I went to do right after finishing Marcia. And I was so underwhelmed by the whole experience because I felt like I had entered into a new place in my life in terms of what I thought was possible, in terms of what I thought I might be willing to see if I can do it. I felt really trapped in my responsibility and my contractual obligation to American Horror Story. As much as it is my home, I've always loved it. This was the first time I felt like I wish I could have gone to Ryan and said, please let me sit this one out. Let me out. And it's just, I know, because I've talked to many people. It's not a favorite. This one is not a favorite among people. I would say with American Horror Story, it almost seems like, and it does, it seems like sometimes he wants to take the seasons for too long and then doesn't know how to properly end them. So another example of that would be Apocalypse. Great fucking story in the beginning, right? You intertwined back the witches from the Coven, who I absolutely fucking love. You brought in warlocks. You brought in the whole, like, it was an apocalypse. And then you brought in the whole talk of the Antichrist. And that's cool and all until you got to the ending. And you get to the ending and you kill the fucking Antichrist by going back in time and running him over. Like, no. And this is kind of how I felt for Roanoke, because I vividly remember before it went on a streaming service, I paid buku's money for fucking Comcast, and I still fucking do because I'm stupid sometimes. And I was so excited because I was in like this weird transition in my life. My husband and I, we were still dating at the time, and we had basically taken a break. He went to go move in with his friend. I went and moved in on my own. I got a 3-bedroom apartment for me and the kids. And this was also prior to Roland being born. But we were both working for the same company. We were both working for Best Bet, which is a gambling company. And I was working overnights. And I don't know if you're someone who works overnights, but it takes a toll on you. And I remember to like enjoy my days off, to kind of go to sleep, I'd have to watch shit in broad daylight and then learn how to turn my body off. So Roanoke was the series on at the time, and I was so fucking excited because why? I'm an American Horror Story fan. I should say was. I haven't watched it really since I skipped over Cult. I don't like things that are too close to home, like too realistic. So I skipped Cult. I watched Apocalypse 1984 because my dad was really excited to watch it. That was the year he graduated. What else was there? I haven't watched any others. I mean, I've watched American Horror Stories, and I think I watched the first season and that's it. I think there's a new season out. I don't know. Once again, it's neither here nor there. But while you could kind of see some of this stuff, and that's what made me excited because it deals with like historical things. Like when you're thinking about Asylum, that's like kind of loosely based around, what is it? Not Penhurst. It's Waverly? No, it was Penhurst. It was loosely based around Penhurst and all of those mental asylums and all of those hospitals that promised to like help those with mental disabilities and, mental health issues. And they're not. And the fact, it's just, it was great. Those were great. This was shit. They should have stopped. You can stop after a reenactment. You can definitely, you can still do the real world road rule shit without doing cannibalism, without doing backwoods fucking people, without doing the whole melon heads or inbreds or whatever the fuck you want to call it, right? Like, it would have been really, I think the episodes would have been better had they left out the Polk family. Like, it really didn't add any context. What did it add? What? A nasty factor because they fed flesh to other people? Because you knew the mother was the grandmother and the aunt and the sister and whatever else? Like what? What did it do? So, getting off my soapbox. With that being said, it concludes this episode, and I hope you guys enjoyed everything. I know a lot of it was me bitching about this season, and I'm sorry if you like it. It's just my opinion, It's not anything to hold as truth. It's not anything to hold, to a high standard. It literally is just my opinion. And that's just it. This is all about opinions when it comes to reviews. So, like I said, that concludes this episode. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe, and share this podcast. You can check out the episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere you stream. Next year, you'll be able to find me on YouTube, which I'm very excited for, and you can always connect with me on Instagram at Paranormal Misfit Podcast, or you can always shoot me an email at paranormalmisfitpod@gmail.com. If you really enjoyed the episode and would like to support this podcast, please feel free to buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com. I will have it linked down below. And with that, everyone, I hope that you have a great rest of your weekend into the next week, and I will see you at the next episode. Stay hauntingly fabulous, and I will see you again later. All right, bye.